Hello everyone, welcome to APTI Plus Academy for Civil Services. In this session, we will be covering the most important current affairs related to environment from December 2024 to the present, with a clear focus on issues relevant for UPSC prelims and mains. So let's get started. The first topic is Year-End Review 2025. So the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change released its Year-End Review 2025, detailing India's achievement in environmental conservation, climate resilience and institutional reforms. So what are its findings? First one is the forest conservation and green cover. So India ranked 9th globally in forest area according to the FAO 2025 report, and 3rd worldwide in annual net forest gain. 9th globally in total forest area. Please note that India's total forest area is 72.74 million hectares. And if we talk about the annual net forest gain, it is in 3rd place, because India has added about 1,91,000 hectares per year from 2015 to 2025. So right now India accounts for around 2% of the world's total forest area. The top nations are Russia, Brazil and Canada. Please note that. And what is annual net gain? It is basically the net change in forest area, which is newly planted, regenerated minus deforestation. So as mentioned earlier, India has added 1,91,000 hectares per year and it is ranking 3rd globally. India is behind China, which is adding around 1.69 million hectares, and Russia. So these are the things that are very important from prelims point of view. So please take a note of all these data, facts and figures. Now please note that if we talk about the Aravallis, we have already restored 36,025 hectares of area. Aravallis was in news as well. And protected areas, of course, it has increased to 1134, and there are around 309 community reserves in India. These are extremely important from prelims point of view. So please go through them thoroughly. If we talk about the wildlife conservation, then Madhav Tiger Reserve, it has been declared as a new tiger reserve in Madhya Pradesh. Also, the 6th cycle of All India Tiger Estimation is being conducted. It is led by the National Tiger Conservation Authority, NTCA. It commenced with field operations in December 2025 and it will continue till April 2026. So we all know that this comprehensive 4-year survey, it spans 20 states and it basically monitors the population trends of tiger, the habitat quality, then the pre-abundance across 58 plus reserves in India. As mentioned, there are 58 tiger reserves in India and the highest number of tiger reserves are in which state? Madhya Pradesh. Apart from this Madhav Tiger Reserve, there were some other newly designated tiger reserves. For instance, the Ratapani Tiger Reserve. This is also in Madhya Pradesh. Ratapani. Madhya Pradesh has in total 9 tiger reserves. Please note that. The highest one. And then there is Guru Ghasidas Tamor Pingla Tiger Reserve. This is in Chhattisgarh. So these are the extra information that I'm giving you. So apart from that, if we talk about elephant reserves, they have increased to 33. Earlier, if we talk about 2014, it was how many? 26, and then it has increased to 33. The population of cheetah has also increased. It has increased to 30 under Project Cheetah. And we all know that cheetah were reintroduced in Gandhi Sagar Wildlife Sanctuary as well. Regarding national projects and action plans, there are few new projects as well. For instance, the Project Dolphin Phase 2, then Sloth Bear, Ghadial, then Tiger Outside Tiger Reserve, etc. There are action plans the things like covering the dolphins, tigers, then snow leopards, bastards, etc. And these are the highlights regarding wildlife conservation as per the year-end review. Now, regarding for non-fossil fuel installed capacity, okay, so it has crossed 50%. Our target was to cross 50% in 2030. So we are already 5 years ahead of our target. Okay. Then the carbon credit trading systems, CCTS, this has been operationalized. What is CCTS? So CCTS was introduced in the year 2023, okay, by the Government of India under the Energy Conservation Act. Okay, and this is basically a market based mechanism where like the target would be to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions across the major industrial sectors in India, and here there will be a provision where the various entities they'll be able to earn tradable carbon credit certificates. You must have studied about the carbon credits and carbon credit certificates in environment. Internationally this has been going on since a long time. Okay, but now this is now active in India also internally. So the various entities, the various industries, they'll be able to earn these certificates if they meet the emission reducing targets, which means that if a company A is meeting its target of reducing the greenhouse gas emission by a certain percentage, then it will be given a certificate. Also, it will gain some credits that it will be able to sell it to company B, which company B can use, okay, because it is a company that is already polluting a lot. So it is like a trade-off. It is like a system where carbon credits are sold between one company, one entity to the other entity. Okay, and the one that will be able to meet the emission targets, that particular company will be given the certificate. Now a number of sectors are there. Around like 9 energy intensive sectors have been targeted under this. For example, cement, then fertilizers, iron and steel, petroleum, textiles, aluminium, etc. Now, as mentioned earlier, in this case, the entities that emit less than the target they have been given, they receive the credits, okay, the credits for producing less greenhouse gases, while those that exceeded, it must purchase it from them, okay. For example, if B is producing 10 metric ton of carbon dioxide, but it was supposed to produce 5, so the target was 5, but it exceeded it and it is producing 10, then in that case, for the extra 5 metric tons of carbon dioxide production, it will have to buy the credits from the company A that has produced less than the given target. So this is a very good mechanism that incentivizes for producing less greenhouse gases, right? Now this particular system, this entire framework in India, this will be a system where there will be a regulatory body. Okay, here the National Steering Committee for Indian Carbon Market, that is NSCICM, okay, this will be the regulatory body. This will be the National Steering Committee, okay, and it will be chaired by the Secretary of the Ministry of Power. So they'll be the entities, the bodies that will oversee the framework. Now if we talk about the implementation, then the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, BEE, this will be responsible for setting targets and managing the trading process. Okay, so it has a lot of benefits as mentioned earlier. It encourages the green investment. It also improves the brand image for sustainable firms, and it helps in preparing for the international regulations and the targets that India has right now. But of course, right now the market is volatile. So they're like complex requirements and the need for accurate monitoring, also reporting and verification of emissions. So these are the constraints right now. Next, if we talk about the air quality and urban environment, around 103 cities, they reduce the PM10 levels, okay, from between 2017 to 2025, and 22 cities they have achieved the standards of the National Ambient Air Quality also. There are 75 new projects under the Nagar Van Yojana. And if we talk about the coastal wetland and mangrove conservation, then under the Mishti program, 4536 hectares of mangrove have been restored. Okay, 11 new Ramsar sites have been added, and now right now India has 96 Ramsar sites. Okay, it is the highest in Asia. We were talking about the MISHTI program. Now MISHTI here stands for Mangrove Initiative for Shoreline Habitats and Tangible Incomes. Okay, basically it is a 2023 scheme of the Government of India, and the aim is to restore and protect mangrove ecosystems along India's coastline. Okay, so the aim is for 540 square kilometers of coverage in the next 5 years. So basically it focuses on reforestation, carbon sequestration, and it also wants to enhance the local livelihoods through sustainable management of the mangroves. A little correction, we said 96, actually 2 more were added. So right now there are 98 Ramsar sites in India, okay, as of February 2026, and total coverage is 1.38 million hectares. So this is the largest network in Asia, and these wetlands of international importance are like spread across various states like Tamil Nadu. It has the highest number of Ramsar sites. Okay, then of course the largest one is Sundarban, then the smallest one is Renuka Lake. Okay, then Chilka, Bhoj wetlands, these are there. Very, very important to note that Udaipur and Indore, they have been designated as India's first cities to be accredited as wetland cities. Wetland cities by the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands in January 2025, and they were basically recognized for their exceptional efforts to protect and manage urban wetlands. Okay, for example, there's a lake in Indore called the Sirpur Lake. Similarly, there are like 5 major lakes in Udaipur. So these cities were selected based on an international criteria for sustainable and wise use of wetland ecosystems. Okay. So the wetland city accreditation, it basically recognizes cities that take exceptional steps to conserve their wetlands and provide sustainable socio-economic benefits to the local populations. Okay, and now this particular designation of wetland city, this would be valid for 6 years, and this also highlights the importance of urban and peri-urban wetland conservation. Okay, now Indore and Udaipur, they received the accreditation, but Bhopal was nominated, but it did not get the accreditation due to environmental concerns regarding the Bhoj wetland. Bhoj is facing severe ecological crisis because it has poor water quality, it has reduced storage capacity, siltation and other issues. Okay, and this is because of the untreated sewage that reaches there, then the agricultural runoff, solid waste dumping, excessive aquatic weed growth, microplastic contamination, etc. So all these together, they threaten the biodiversity and the water security of the Bhoj wetland, which is why it was not given the recognition. Now 18 beaches have been given the certification of blue flag. Okay, so what is a blue flag beach? Basically it is an international eco label certification. Eco label certification that is awarded to beaches that meet the strict standards for water quality, environmental management, safety, services. Okay, so these kind of like pristine, eco-friendly beaches, they ensure there is there is high cleanliness, there is proper waste disposal, okay, amenities for the visitors, etc. Now in India, a number of beaches have been given. 18 beaches have been certified as mentioned earlier. Okay, for example, if we talk about the examples, Karnataka has the Kasarkod beach, then the Padubidri beach, okay, they are known for their cleanliness and amenities. Similarly, in Gujarat, there is Shivrajpur beach near Dwarka. It is known for white sand and clear water. Then the Ghogla beach in Daman and Diu. Kerala has Kappad beach. Odisha has Golden beach. Puri, which is known for environmental education. Puducherry has the Eden beach. Tamil Nadu has Kovalam beach. Andaman and Nicobar has Radhanagar beach. Maharashtra has a number of recent additions. For example, Srivardhan, Nagaon, Karnataka, Guhagar, Ladghar, etc. So, of course, water quality is one of the criterias, environmental management is there, safety and services and education. And it's a good, huge recognition for the particular beaches. Now, please note that the Blue Flag Beach certification is run by FEE. That is the Foundation for Environmental Education, okay. And FEE is a leading global non-profit organization that was established in the year 1981. It is dedicated to promoting sustainable development through environmental education. It has its headquarters at Denmark. Okay, it operates in 80 plus countries. Okay, and it empowers action against climate change, pollution, biodiversity loss, etc. Moving to waste management and circular economy. So 71,401 producers got the EPR registration, 4,447 recyclers got it, 375.11 lakh tons of waste got recycled. What is EPR registration? EPR stands for Extended Producer Responsibility. Basically, this registration is a mandatory process for producers, importers and brand owners to manage the environmental impact of plastic, then e-waste, then battery or tire waste. Okay, and this is a completely like online process by the CPCB, that is the Central Pollution Control Board. Okay, and through this portal, various companies, they submit their details, waste management plans, required documents like PAN, GST, CIN to obtain a certificate. Okay. So EPR is basically important for businesses if they want to ensure that they meet their environmental obligations. At the same time, they want to foster a sustainable future and improve the market position in India. Okay, so it signifies what? Legal compliance. It reduces environmental impact. It boosts the brand reputation. It also promotes circular economy. Okay, so because it is basically managing the entire life cycle of product. So this was made mandatory that you need to have the EPR certification. So there was a good improvement in this area as well. Next, if we talk about environmental awareness, 6 crore participants were mobilized for Mission Life. Now, Mission Life, here life stands for Lifestyle for Environment. It is a global public movement. It was launched by India in COP26 and the aim is to promote sustainable, eco-friendly living, right? It basically encourages individuals to adopt pro-planet habits. For example, to reduce, reuse, recycle, combat climate change, okay? Then shift from mindless consumption to deliberate utilization, all right? So, this was the objective of Mission Life and we can see a lot of participation in this particular mission. Now, if we talk about the major reforms, then the Green Credit Program has been expanded. Okay, what is the Green Credit Program? Basically, it is a market-based mechanism to incentivize environmental restoration. Now, if we want to understand, then if a company plants trees and maintains them successfully for 5 years, ensuring dense growth, then it earns green credits. Okay, now these credits can be used for compliance or they can be traded also, just like the carbon credits. Okay, now there have been some changes in this. What are the changes? The participation has been expanded to public and private entities also. Now the green credits would be issued if plantation achieves 40%, equivalent to 40% or more than 40% canopy density for 5 years. Okay, so the objective is clear: to promote afforestation, okay, and create a green investment market. Next, if we talk about the Van Sanrakshan Evam Samvardhan Amendment Rules 2025, these basically amend forest conservation procedures. And what are the changes? This has expanded the degraded and recorded forest land bank for compensatory afforestation. And there will be faster mining approvals and stronger compensatory afforestation norms also. So if a forest land is diverted for mining or projects, afforestation must happen more systematically, basically. So there is a provision for faster approvals but stricter afforestation accountability. Next, the Environmental Protection Management of Contaminated Rules 2025, this has been also like amended. Now India has many polluted industrial sites, we all know, with no structured cleanup framework. So basically under these rules, there will be identification of the contaminated land. Okay, it will assess pollution level, mandate like scientific remediation, and of course this will improve the urban environmental health and reduce long-term public health risks. Finally, if we talk about the Environment Audit Rules of 2025, this is a major reform because it introduces what? Certified third-party environmental auditors. Here, instead of the government inspections, certified professionals will conduct whether there has been compliance or not regarding the environmental commitments. Okay, so there will be compliance verification, on-site audits, etc. So this will increase transparency, it will also reduce delays and improve accountability. Finally, if we talk about Parivesh 2.0, so Parivesh, it stands for what? Proactive and responsive facilitation by interactive and virtuous environmental single window hub. It is basically a fully automated environmental clearance system. Okay, it is integrated with the GIS so that there is real-time decision making. It is also linked with PM Gati Shakti master plan, then the national single window system, the CAMPA, you all know about the CAMPA funds, I'm pretty sure. So here now the environmental clearances will be faster, it will be in a digitized manner, data based, and it will be integrated across ministries. Next, we'll be talking about the India State of Forest Report 2023 key findings. Okay, so the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change released the 18th India State of Forest Report. Okay, this report is published biennially. Biennial means once in every 2 years. Okay, by the Forest Survey of India, FSI. Forest Survey of India, and the Forest Survey of India has been releasing this particular report since 1987 to assess and monitor the country's forest resources. Now this FSI was established in 1981. Okay, it has its headquarters in Dehradun, and it has also regional offices in Shimla, Kolkata, Nagpur, Bangalore. It has a sub-center at Burnighat, Meghalaya. And what is the main objective of this FSI? It includes forest resource assessment, monitoring, training, research and extension services. Now, if we talk about the key findings of ISFR 2023, then India's total forest and tree cover, it accounts for 25.17% of India's geographical area, and it is around 8,27,356 square kilometers. Okay. Next, if we talk about the forest cover, it is around 7,15,000 square kilometers, which is 21.76%. So the percentage is extremely important. Even these figures are also important. Tree cover 3.41%. Okay, 1,12,000 square kilometers. Scrub 1.33%, 43,000 square kilometers. Non-forest area 24 lakhs square kilometers. Okay, 73.50% approximately. So since 2021, there has been increase of around 1445 square kilometers. Okay, forest cover has increased by 156 square kilometers. Then the maximum increase is forest plus tree cover. Okay, in Chhattisgarh, Uttar Pradesh, Odisha, Rajasthan, and maximum increase if we talk about only the forest cover, then it is in Mizoram, which is followed by Gujarat and then Odisha. Largest decrease in forest cover is in Madhya Pradesh. It is followed by Karnataka, Ladakh and Nagaland. So these are the things that you need to remember thoroughly. They can also give you the terminologies, that is total forest cover, tree cover, forest cover, then the scrubland, etc., and ask you to arrange in decreasing or increasing order in terms of their areas in India. Okay. Now we were talking about forest cover and tree cover. So what are these? Forest cover basically refers to all lands of more than 1 hectare. More than 1 hectare with a tree canopy density of more than or equal to 10%. Okay. This includes orchards, bamboo, palm, regardless of their legal status. On the other hand, if we talk about tree cover, it denotes scattered or small patches of trees less than 1 hectare outside regarded forest area. Okay, so according to this ISFR report, India's forest cover is 21.76% and tree cover is 3.41%, which totals to 25.17% of the total geographical area of India. Clear? So, Madhya Pradesh with 77,000 square kilometers has the largest forest cover. Okay, then Madhya Pradesh is followed by Arunachal Pradesh and then Chhattisgarh. Okay, and if we talk about the geographical area, percentage of geographical area, which means that a particular state and how much percentage of the total area of this particular state has forest cover. If we consider that thing, then in that case Lakshadweep of course rules, because it has 91.33% of forest cover Okay, Mizoram has 85.34%, followed by Andaman and Nicobar Islands with 81.62%. Okay, and if we talk about the high forest cover, then 19 states and UTs, because they have more than 33% of their geographical area as forest cover. Okay, then very high forest cover, more than 75% of their geographical area has forest cover. What kind of states are these? Mizoram, Lakshadweep, Andaman and Nicobar, then Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Meghalaya, Tripura, Manipur. Next, what are the findings pertaining to carbon stock? So, carbon stock is what? It basically refers to the absolute quantity of carbon stored in a carbon pool, such as forest, soil, ocean at a specific time. Okay. So, the absolute amount of carbon that is stored in it. Okay, for example, forests, they are major carbon stocks because they store over 1 trillion tons globally in terms of biomass and soil. Okay, and it is a critical measure for climate mitigation, and then it also helps in tracking carbon sequestration capacity. So, if we talk about that, as per the ISFR report, how much of the carbon stock is there in India? So, total forest carbon stock is 7 to 85.5 million hectares. Okay, so there has been increase since 2021, okay, increased by 81.5 metric million tons. Then top 3 states in terms of carbon stock: Arunachal Pradesh 1021 metric ton, okay, followed by Madhya Pradesh 608 metric ton, and then million tons, and then Chhattisgarh 505 million tons, and then Maharashtra 465 million tons. So India's carbon stock is in carbon equivalent, if we talk about, then 30.43 billion tons, 30.43 billion tons. Okay, it exceeds the 2005 base by 2.29 billion tons, and we are nearing the 2030 target of 2.5 to 3 billion tons. We have a target of 2.5 to 3 billion tons. So I hope you understood this pretty clearly. Right now, India's carbon stock in carbon dioxide equivalent is 30.43 billion tons. Okay, this is 2.29 billion tons more than the 2005 base. Okay, so 2005 base was this one, particularly 30.43 minus 2.29 billion tons. Okay, and our target is 2.5 to 3 billion tons in comparison to 2005 as a base. So that is what we tried to convey. Okay, now if we talk about regional performance, then Western Ghats eco-sensitive areas, they are under they have 73% under their forest cover. Northeastern region around 67% of the geographical area. So that is regional performance. Okay, mangrove cover total, we have already discussed that it has increased. Okay, but if we talk about the trend, then from 2021 to 2025, we can see there is a net decrease in mangrove cover by 7.43 square kilometers. Okay, if we talk about the state level changes, then we have seen that Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, everywhere we have seen some like decreasing or increasing trends. For example, in Gujarat there has been a decrease by 36.39 square kilometers, but similarly if we talk about Andhra Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh, there has been an increase in the mangrove cover. In Andhra Pradesh 13.01 square kilometer, Maharashtra 12.39 square kilometer. So you need to have a fair idea about these trends. Okay, regarding forest fire, the top states with most forest fires between 2023-2024 were Uttarakhand, Odisha and Chhattisgarh. If we talk about the trends, because a number of questions appear in prelims in terms of trends. So between 2013 to 2023, the forest cover has increased, okay, by 16,630 square kilometers. The tree cover has increased by 20,747 square kilometers. The mangrove cover has increased by 296 square kilometers, and there has been improvement in terms of soil health as well. Now here they can ask you that like in terms of the most increase in particular parameter, determine like in increasing or decreasing order. For example, forest cover increase is more than tree cover increase, is more than mangrove cover increase, or vice versa, or tree cover increase is more than forest cover increase, which is more than mangrove cover increase. So of course the answer would be yes, tree cover increase was more than forest cover increase, and forest cover increase was more than mangrove cover increase in India. So, in conclusion, we can say that there have been positive trends in forest and tree cover, carbon stock, soil health, biodiversity, etc. Okay, and but there are challenges like forest fires, mangrove loss, and biotic pressures. And India continues to meet its targets, and it has strong conservation efforts also that aligns with the Paris Agreement, the Bonn Challenge, and it is trying to reinforce its role in the global climate action. If we talk about our global targets, global commitments, then under the Paris Agreement, India aims for an additional carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent by 2030 in comparison to the 2005 as a base, as mentioned earlier. Okay, under the Bonn Challenge, India pledges to restore 26 million hectares of degraded land by 2030. 26 million. Okay, these are extremely important from prelims point of view. Okay, forest sustains about 17% of global human population and 18% of world's livestock. And if we talk about the global rankings, then top 10 global countries in forest area, of course, India is among the top, and third highest net gain in forest cover between 2010 to 2020. This was extremely important. So, India conducted its first complete survey of river dolphins covering the Ganga, Brahmaputra and Beas river systems to estimate the populations, then identify the hot spots and cold spots and assess the threats. Okay. Now, the survey found that there are 6,324 Gangetic dolphins and only 3 Indus dolphins. Okay. So, of course, there's a need for critical conservation. Okay. Now, if we talk about the Gangetic dolphins, as mentioned earlier, 6,324, Indus dolphins 3. State-wise distribution of Gangetic dolphins, Uttar Pradesh has the highest number of Gangetic dolphins, 2,397, then Bihar, 2,200. Okay, then West Bengal, 815, Jharkhand 162, and Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, they collectively they have 95 Gangetic dolphins. Similarly, if we talk about the river specific findings, then the main stem of Ganga has 3,275 dolphins. The tributaries of Ganga have 2,414 dolphins. The Brahmaputra main stem has 584 dolphins, and the Brahmaputra tributaries has 51 dolphins. Okay, hotspots and cold spots. Hotspots, of course, high dolphin density is there in Chausa Manihar, which is in Bihar, 2.20 dolphins per kilometers, and Manihari is in Bihar, Rajmahal is in Jharkhand, and this stretch has 2.75 dolphins per kilometers. Similarly, if we talk about the cold spots, which means low dolphin density, then the Narora Kanpur, which is in Uttar Pradesh, this stretch has 0.1 dolphins per kilometers, and Yamuna, Sharda, Rapti, Barak rivers in Assam, they have very few dolphins again. So, of course, the total coverage of Ganga was there and Brahmaputra in this particular survey. Then 101 kilometers of Beas river was also there. Now, if we talk about the threats to river dolphins, so of course, both Gangetic and Indus dolphins, they're endangered and they're protected under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Please remember the status endangered. Okay, and the major threats are what? Pollution and industrial discharge, riverbed mining, low water depth, decline in fish population, because of course they prey on the fishes, and the climate change impacts. Okay, if we particularly talk about the Assam specific trends, then the main Brahmaputra river, it has good depth, stable dolphin population, but the tributaries like Subansiri and Kulsi river, they have declining populations. Similarly, if we talk about Barak river, it has been identified as a cold spot with very few dolphins. So these are the very minute details that we discussed and extremely important from prelims point of view. Next is India achieves major climate milestone ahead of schedule. So India has crossed the 50% threshold of installed electricity capacity from non-fossil fuel sources, and we have achieved this target 5 years ahead of the 2030 Paris Climate Agreement deadline. Okay, now what is the target? What was the target? So 2030 targets under the Paris Agreement were what? 50% from non-fossil fuel sources. If we are producing electricity, then 50% of the sources of the electricity production should be from non-fossil fuel sources. This we have already achieved. Okay, the target was 2030. Then the next target under the Paris Agreement 2030 target is what? 45% reduction in emission intensity of GDP. So we are on track on in this 45% reduction in emission intensity of GDP from the 2005 levels. So what is emission intensity of GDP? Emission intensity of GDP is a measure of how much greenhouse gas is emitted for every unit of economic output produced. Okay, so basically it indicates the carbon efficiency of an economy rather than the total emissions. Okay, so it allows growth to occur while reducing the polluted generated per dollar of wealth. Okay, so it is basically calculated as what? Total greenhouse gas emissions divided by GDP. So we have a target of 45% reduction in emission intensity of GDP from 2005 levels, and we are on track. And also we have a target of creating 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon sink through forests and tree cover as mentioned earlier. Okay, so India surpassed its 2015 targets by 2022, and now it is progressing towards more ambitious goals. So let's see what will happen. Now if we talk about the drivers of renewable energy growth, so there is rapid solar and wind expansion as mentioned earlier. Nearly 30 gigawatt of renewable capacity has been added in 2024. Okay, 24 gigawatt from solar, and this is the highest ever in a single year. Similarly, if we talk about the nuclear contribution, India aims to double nuclear capacity by 17 gigawatt by 2030 through small modular reactors. Okay, and the long-term vision is what? 500 gigawatt non-fossil fuel capacity by 2030, and this would be domination of renewables. So COP29 and COP30, they were in news, extremely important from exam point of view. So firstly, we'll talk about COP29 and then COP30. COP29 to the UNFCCC was held in Baku. It is in Azerbaijan. Okay, nearly 200 countries participated. Okay, and the conference concluded with the Baku Climate Unity Pact. Firstly, we all know that the UNFCCC or the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, they basically serve as a formal meeting of the UNFCCC parties, the COP, the Conference of the Parties. They basically assess the progress in dealing with climate change, and they began in the 1990s to negotiate the Kyoto Protocol to establish legally binding obligations for the developed countries to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. Now these COPs or Conference of Parties, they are convened under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change or UNFCCC, which is a multilateral treaty that was adopted in 1992. Okay, now these meetings, the COPs, they serve as the formal meetings of the Conference of the Parties, and hence this is the acronym. Now COPs are where the parties, the various governments of various countries, they assess the global efforts to advance the key Paris Agreement, which aims to limit the global warming to as close as possible to 1.5 degree centigrade above the pre-industrial levels. Now parties take decisions on ways to cut greenhouse gas emissions and adapting the impacts of the climate change on the loss and damage, and there are other instruments also. Okay, so this is all about the UNFCCC and COP in a very brief manner we have discussed, because when you have read environment, I'm sure you must be knowing about the concepts of these environmental conventions and treaties. Now here recently the COP29 was held, and then COP30 was also held. So COP29 was held in Baku in Azerbaijan. Now if we talk about the COP29, particularly it adopted what? The new climate finance goal. What is the new climate finance goal? The new collective quantified goal on climate finance. So basically it aims to triple climate finance for the developing countries. You must be knowing that all the developed countries, they were responsible for the industrial revolution, and then that is why the emissions were from their end, and that is why they need to compensate the developing countries. They need to transfer finance as well as technology, so that the developing countries who are suffering because of the industrial revolution and the emissions historically done by the developed countries, they can cope with it and all that, and that is why they're like mechanisms to fund the developing countries. Okay, so under this particular new collective quantified goal, the aim is to triple climate finance for developing countries from $100 billion to $300 billion annually by 2035, with developed countries expected to take the lead. The agreement also calls for mobilizing 1.3 trillion US per year by 2035 from all public and private sources for climate mitigation and adaptation in developing countries. So the developing countries, they need to adapt to the climate change that is happening. Okay, not just mitigate it, but there's a limit to how much we can mitigate the effects, and we need to adapt and develop systems that can be used to adapt with the climate change. Okay, so that was the outcome, the new climate finance goal, the new collective quantified goal, but this goal is not binding in nature, very important to note, and it lacks clarity on the burden sharing, like which countries will be sharing how much of burden, etc. Next outcome was the carbon market and Article 6. So COP29 finalized long pending rules under the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. So 6.2 article, it allows countries to engage in bilateral trading of carbon credits, and then Article 6.4, it establishes a centralized UN managed global carbon market for emissions offsetting. So this is expected to enhance the cost effective mitigation, but it also raises concerns about the transparency and the environmental integrity. Next, if we talk about the methane reduction declaration, then over 30 countries endorsed the declaration on reducing methane from organic waste. So basically it targets the waste sector, which accounts for nearly 20% of the global methane emissions. So the focus areas would be regulation, finance, data, partnership and inclusion of sectoral targets in NDCs. India is not a signatory, similar to its position on the global methane pledge. Okay. Next is about indigenous people and local communities. So COP29 adopted the Baku work plan and extended the mandate of Facilitative Working Group FWG under the local communities and indigenous people's platform. So basically the focus is on integrating indigenous knowledge with climate science, capacity building and participation, inclusion of traditional values in climate policies, etc. Okay, the implementation, of course, it began in 2025 and the review will be done in 2027, like how far we have come across. And then there's gender and climate change. So the Lima work program on gender, it was extended for another 10 years and it aims to ensure that there is gender responsive climate policies, because we all know that a particular gender, it bears the burdens of climate change more than the counterpart. Why? Because, for example, if we take an example, because of the climate change, a lot of things are happening in India as well. Okay, drought, and then there's no water, groundwater depletion, etc. So if there's no water, proper provisioning of water in the rural area especially, so the women, they have to go for, like, say 20 kilometers to bring water, to fetch water. So of course there's injustice in this case, and because of patriarchy, that is why the aim should be gender responsive, right? So the climate policies, whatever we are taking, that should have, of course, we need to consider the angle of gender also. So the angle of gender needs to be ensured, and that is why the Lima work plan on gender has been extended and under the convention of the Paris Agreement as well. So a new gender action plan will be adopted at COP30. This was the mandate. Now next is the Baku Harmonia Climate Initiative for Farmers. This was launched in partnership with the Food and Agriculture Organization, that is FAO. Basically, it seeks to simplify access to climate finance and support the farmers for integrating existing initiatives. Okay. Now, if we talk about India's position at COP29, India rejected the NCQG, okay, calling the US $300 billion target inadequate, because it is saying that we need to increase it more. $100 billion that was not met, and now $300 billion, that is not enough, and we need to increase it. Along with that, the global south countries they have also raised their voices, and India has also demanded that 1.3 trillion US dollars annually is required from the end of the developed countries to mitigate the effects of the climate change. And at least 600 billion US dollars should be in the form of grants or concessional finance. Okay, India also emphasized on equity, because India stressed that Article 9 of the Paris Agreement, which places the responsibility of the climate finance on the developed countries. It opposed shifting financial responsibility to all countries, and it including the developing nations, because as mentioned earlier that there should be differential treatment, because the burden is being borne by the developing countries, but the emissions were mostly by the developed countries. Okay, so that is all about the COP29. Now if we talk about the COP30 particularly, if we talk about the COP30, so this was aligned with the 2025 deadline of the submission of the updated NDCs, NDC 3.0. It was held in Belém, Brazil. So location is extremely important. They can confuse you where the COP29 was held, COP30 was held, etc. So that is there. So this particular conference, the COP30, it marked a shift from announcement of pledges to actual implementation and accountability. Okay, so What were the major outcomes? There was a Belém package which was adopted unanimously by 195 countries. Okay, in this, like multiple dimensions of the climate action were addressed, including adaptation and mitigation, climate finance, just transition, forest and biodiversity, gender, health, trade, technology, and information integrity. Okay, so Belém mission to 1.5 degrees centigrade. So an action oriented plan should be there under the COP 2931 Troika, okay, UAE, Azerbaijan, and then Brazil. What is the aim of this Belém mission? Emission reduction efforts, climate adaptation, climate related investments. Now, if we talk about the Global Implementation Accelerator, it is again a voluntary initiative, GIA, to assist countries in implementing NDCs, the National Adaptation Plans. Okay, the National Determined Contributions. What are the NDCs? NDCs are the commitments that various countries make. They are not like binding in nature, but they say that yes, we'll be doing this, we'll be meeting these commitments. India also has its NDCs that we have covered in multiple sessions previously. Now, what is this particular thing? This is NAP's Implementation Alliance, that is the National Adaptation Plans. Okay, this has been launched to convert adaptation plans into bankable and implementable projects. Okay, and it is supported by the United Nations Development Program as well. Alright, then regarding forests and nature, of course, Tropical Forest Forever Facility, this has been proposed. It has been proposed to establish a 125 billion tropical forest investment fund. It provides long-term payments to tropical countries for conserving forests, and minimum 20% of funds have been earmarked for the indigenous people, the local communities. The trustee of this particular Tropical Forest Forever Facility would be World Bank, and India is an observer to it. Okay, then RAISE Accelerator, basically this is to restore 3 million hectares of degraded agricultural land. It uses blended finance. It involves the public as well as private capital, and this is coordinated by the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, and its partners. Okay, so this is all about the COP 30, and then there is a Baku Belém roadmap as well. 29 Baku, 13 Belém. It defines the pathway to mobilize US dollars 1.3 trillion per year by 2035 as climate finance under the new collective quantifiable goal. Very important from exam perspective, NCQG. Okay, adaptation finance to reach 120 billion dollars annually, and Baku adaptation roadmap approved for 2026 to 2028. Then there is something called FINI initiative. It basically focuses on making national adaptation plans investment ready, so that the plans should have like proper provisioning for investments as well. Okay, and then the Compliance Carbon Markets Coalition. It basically, the Carbon Markets Coalition works towards harmonizing the carbon pricing across the countries, the standards across the countries. Okay. Then there is Power Grid Expansion Plan to accelerate the coal transition, and Belém 4 pledge on sustainable fuels. Okay, so basically it is a commitment to quadruple the use of sustainable fuels by 2035 if we take base year as 2024. Very important, and the progress would be monitored by International Energy Agency. Okay. There is also a Belém Health Action Plan where initial funding will be $300 million, and they'll be focused on Global South. Please note that COP 30 was the first COP that declared addressing climate misinformation as a structural challenge, because a lot of people and stakeholders, they say that climate change is a myth, etc. So this is a kind of misinformation, and this is a structural challenge, and this was acknowledged in COP 30. So next we'll be talking about the CCUS, or the carbon capture, utilization and storage. So the Union Budget 2026-2027 allocated 20,000 crores for CCUS, and this is a huge transition from research to commercial development. But what is CCUS? Extremely important from exam point of view, that it basically refers to a set of technologies that capture carbon dioxide from power plants, refineries, industries, and remove it directly from the atmosphere as well. Okay, so it has 3 stages: post combustion, so capture of the carbon dioxide after the combustion. So carbon dioxide is separated from flue gases after burning fuel. So what are flue gases? Flue gases are basically the byproducts of exhaust mixture. Primarily they have nitrogen, carbon dioxide, water vapor, etc. They are discharged into the atmosphere from combustion in furnaces, boilers, industrial plants, etc. So from the flue gases, the carbon dioxide is separated. So post combustion, right? So this is the first step. Now, in the second mechanism, what happens is carbon dioxide is captured in a different way. How? The fuel is converted into hydrogen and carbon dioxide before the combustion itself. Before the combustion of the fuel, carbon dioxide and hydrogen, they are separated, they are converted into, the entire fuel is converted into hydrogen and carbon dioxide. And then there is oxy-fuel combustion. Oxy-fuel combustion. What happens in this? Basically, the fuel is burned in pure oxygen. So, this produces what? Concentrated carbon dioxide. Okay, so this is the first one, the capture of carbon dioxide. Then the transport. Carbon dioxide is compressed and transported via pipeline, ships, rail or road. Finally, storage or use, because this carbon dioxide is then injected into deep geological formations, for example depleted oil and gas fields, deep saline aquifers, etc. Alternatively, carbon dioxide is also used in industrial products. Now, CCUS has a huge role in climate change mitigation because it helps in reducing emissions from hard to abate sectors, for example cement, which is responsible for 7% of the global carbon dioxide emissions. Then steel and chemical industry. Okay, then it also supports what? Production of low carbon hydrogen and electricity. It also enables carbon removal technologies like the bioenergy, then direct air carbon capture and storage. It can also be applied to coal, gas and biomass plants, and it contributes to energy security. So extremely important. However, we can say that it has a lot of challenges as well. For example, it has high capital cost, infrastructure gaps are there, then utilization limits are there, regulatory vacuums are there. Right now, India has taken a number of initiatives. For example, it has, as mentioned earlier, invested 20,000 crores for the CCUS in power sectors, cement and refineries and chemicals as well. Then we have the VGF, that is a viability gap funding, okay, where the industries which will not be able to do it, they will be funded. Like the amount that is they are falling short, that will be funded by the government of India. Okay, so that is there. So yes, there are like a number of measures are being taken to strengthen the CCUS in India. Okay, and once done, we can say that we have to prioritize renewables as well at the same time, and then we have to develop a carbon storage atlas also. Okay, so that there is a success of this particular mission. Next, we'll be talking about the Vanashakti case. Okay, so in Vanashakti case, what happened? It occurred in May 2025. The Supreme Court restrained the Union government from granting ex post facto environmental clearances, which means that already you have started a project. Okay, after 6 months you are going for approval and the government is passing the project and giving the permission retrospectively. Okay, this was stopped because in this particular case, Vanashakti case, the Supreme Court reaffirmed that environmental clearance must be obtained before starting a project and not after it. Okay, so what were the rulings of this particular Vanashakti judgment? Prior environmental clearance is mandatory. No mining, industrial or real estate project can begin without advance environmental clearance. Okay, it also struck down centers relaxations. For example, it said that retrospective environmental clearances are illegal, arbitrary, and they are unconstitutional as well. Okay, what was the constitutional basis of this judgment? Article 21, right to life, which includes right to clean and healthy environment, and Article 14, arbitrary regularization violates equality before law. And the environmental principle was also applied here, which emphasized upon prevention over cure, and it held that environmental clearances are foundational safeguards, not post-violation formalities. Okay. Please note that earlier also in Common Cause versus Union of India, the Supreme Court had already ruled that the concept of ex post facto environmental clearance is alien to environmental jurisprudence. Okay, and then the May 2025 Vanashakti ruling, it did what? It reaffirmed this settled legal position. Now again in 2025 there has been review and recall of the judgment. Now why has the judgment recalled? Industry bodies and union government, they argued that limited retrospective ECs has been allowed earlier in exceptional cases. So a blanket ban could harm large public and private investments. Okay. And a major view of CJI Gavai and Justice Chandran were what? They recalled the May 2025 ruling and ordered a fresh hearing. They expressed concern that projects worthy nearly 20,000 crores project could face demolition. Examples include the AIIMS Odisha steel plants, Greenfield airport projects, etc. Also, it allowed limited ex post facto ECs. Okay, so only in exceptional cases retrospective clearances can be given and is subject to strict conditions and heavy penalties. Okay. So this was all about the Vanashakti case, which was followed by the recent recalling of that particular judgment. Now if we talk about the EIA, that is the Environmental Impact Assessment Framework, the purpose of EIA notification 2006 was to what? Ensure that environmental impacts are assessed before project approval, and it aims to prevent irreversible environmental damage. Okay, under the EIA 2006, project categories are there. For example, under category A, they're like central level, okay, projects with significant environmental impact, which requires prior EC from the Ministry of Environment. Okay, it has to be appraised by the expert appraisal committee as well. Category B belongs to the state level, where projects with relatively lower impact, it requires prior EC from state and UT Environmental Impact Assessment Authority, and also appraised by the state expert appraisal committee. And finally, prior EC must remain the norm but not the exception. Any ex post facto EC should be rare, judicially monitored, accompanied by strict penalties, and that is what should be the way forward. Finally, if we talk about the sacred groves and legal mandates in Rajasthan, what happened is the Supreme Court of India has mandated the Rajasthan Forest Department to map and classify all sacred groves as community reserves under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Now, this classification transfers control from local communities to the forest officials for conservation purposes. So, we all know what are sacred groves. They are basically community protected virgin forest patches which has like immense spiritual, cultural and ecological significance, and they are often dedicated to local deities, right? They serve as biodiversity hotspots and micro watersheds, and these ancient protected areas, they prohibit hunting, logging, etc. So they were under the locals previously, but now the Supreme Court of India has decided that they need to be classified as community reserves, and now it conflicts with the Forest Rights Act of 2006, which emphasizes that traditional rights and community governance over forest lands, and it also prioritizes local stewardship and cultural management. If we talk about the sacred groves in Rajasthan, they are locally known as Orans, Malvan, Deoghat and Berg. Okay, approximately there are around 25,000 groves and it covers 6 lakh hectares. Now, traditionally they are managed by the local communities. They are often linked to religious and cultural significance, and they function as biodiversity hotspots. They provide medicinal resources, cultural identity, ecological stability, etc. Now, the Supreme Court's directive is rooted in T.N. Godavarman versus Union of India case. That is the precedent where forest land includes all areas recorded as forest irrespective of ownership. Okay, so that is there. Now, if we talk about the Rajasthan Forest Policy 2023, it lacks any specific protection framework for the sacred groves. Okay, and that is why the Supreme Court of India has taken this stance. Now, if you particularly talk about the community reserves under the Wildlife Protection Act, then we can say that these are the areas on community or private land that are conserved for ecological and cultural values. Okay, they are basically community like managed by the Community Reserve Management Committee, and the management plan is overseen by whom? The Chief Wildlife Warden, and the local communities, they assist in conservation and report violations. Legal protection is there, which includes prohibitions on damaging flora and fauna and structured conservation responsibilities. Now, this particular ruling by the Supreme Court, it does what? It conflicts with the FRA, that is the Forest Rights Act 2006, where sacred groves are community forest resources and they emphasize community governance and traditional conservation practices. Now, Gram Sabhas hold authority over management and potentially conflicting with state-controlled classification. So, FRA supports community-led conservation, which aligns with local customs and practices rather than centralized bureaucratic control. So, this was all about the sacred groves and the legal mandates in Rajasthan. With this, we come to an end of this session. There are a number of topics, but we tried to cover the most important ones over here that was possible within this frame of time. Okay, so thank you so much and study well. All the best.